Welcome to Trust Me, the podcast. We are your hosts, Beth Finkel and Kiana Salucci.
And we are here to share with you how we create magic in our everyday while balancing family, careers, and relationships. Welcome back, everyone. We are here with an amazing episode, and I just want to start off by saying and asking you guys a question. Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, replaying a tough choice over and over in your mind?
Last night I did that.
See? Hard decisions, whether it's changing careers, ending relationships, or making a big life move, can tie us in knots. We've all been there, feeling the weight of a difficult choice. In this episode, we'll dive into why making hard decisions feels so hard, explore the emotions and mindsets that come along with tough choices, and share practical strategies to help you decide with confidence. By the end of this, you'll have all the tools and the insights in your face, so the next time you're facing big decisions, you'll have more clarity and less fear. But let's start by unpacking why hard decisions can feel so overwhelming in the first place.
Well, I hope you're bringing all that tools and magic to this conversation, because it's not going to be coming from me.
You got this.
Do I?
You do.
Do I? Well, where should we start? Do we even know when decisions are hard? Can we see them coming? Like, I feel like sometimes you're blindsided.
I feel like for the most part you are, because you don't prepare when hard decisions come to the surface, right? I think that when it's time to make hard decisions is when we start to prepare.
Okay.
But we're never prepared for a hard decision to come our way, because usually they come and they come out of nowhere, right? And I think the biggest thing and why it's really challenging is the fear of the unknown and the fear of making the wrong decision.
Yeah, I think our mind does that. Like, it's called it's negativity bias is what it is. And so if we don't have, I talk to my students about this a lot. We're hardwired to seek out, like genetically, we're hardwired to seek out certainty. So when we get and dip our toes into uncertainty, our body is built to be alarmed. I actually was just listening to something yesterday about this, where humans, we do it to ourselves, even like to a degree that's not necessary. Like for animals, when they, jump into the realm of uncertainty, like they're about to get attacked on or whatever, their stress hormones raise, their anxiety raises, they get through and use that as fuel and power and clarity, and they get out of that sticky situation, and then they go back to normal and they go back to their life. But with humans, we're sitting here having migraines, ulcers, shaky stomachs, right? Like my stomach's not right now. And that's because we're not in the moment of like what's actually happening. We're in the past, calculating all of that and having sort of this neurological drift of like doomsday. And then we're in the future calculating all of that. So it's like we're packing on minimum 2 to 3 layers of extra stress and anxiety than what the actual situation is giving us on its own.
Right. I think that we have, when that does happen too, the anxieties and the heart racing and all those things while we lay in bed or wherever, I think there's a conflict happening between our brains and our heart. And at that moment, they're not seeing eye to eye, right? Because when you lead with your heart, right, that has all the emotions, the feelings, the wants, the desires, the needs. But when you lead with your brain, that has more logic, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of times you want to use both tools, right? Because they're super, super important. But if we lead like strongly and only solely with our minds, a lot of times we might miss opportunity because your brain will tell you, "Hey, don't touch that kettle because it's hot." What are you gonna do? You're not gonna touch it, you're not gonna explore it. It
Yeah.
will also say, "Hey, Beth, I know you want to go up for that promotion, but you've never been in a room with people like that. You've never talked to people in that form. You've never stretched yourself to do something like that.
Yeah.
That's scary. You might want to stay where you're at because it's there to protect you. Where your heart, its desires, it's like, but this is what I've always wanted. This is what I dreamed of doing. This is where I want to be, right? And it has more of an emotional driven to it. So when those two things conflict, it leaves us paralyzed. It
Yeah.
leaves us anxious. It leads us, to uncertainties and that sick stomach feeling that we get. So when we do get into this verses of the heart and mind, that's when we need to silence ourselves and kind of go back to like old school. I'm talking about
Yeah.
old school, grade school, when you were doing pros and cons lists, right? And as juvenile as that may seem, I kid you not, by
I almost
using
tried to do that the other day,
it
but
works.
it does work. It does work, but I still think sometimes you need some space between that list and the emotions.
Yeah. But I think that also is like when you're involving like the pros and cons lists, right? And I'm sure you guys that are listening know what I'm talking about. When you take the piece of paper, you fold it in half, and one is the pros, all the good things that can happen, and the cons are all the bad things that can happen, right? Simple, easy. By doing this list, right? A lot of times it eliminates the emotional part of it. It is black and white. It is or it's not,
Yeah.
right? And that's why I like the pros and cons list because that will show you all those anxieties, all those thoughts, all those things that are floating around your head. You're taking those things and you're putting on a paper. So it's a more logical way of knowing the decisions that you're going to make without too much of the emotional part, right? And it will show you the balance between the two.
What where does it come in? Like, I'm thinking about what is a hard choice, right? Like, I feel like we need to even understand the amount we're investing in a choice. Like, if the choice is, easy to compare to other options, a very low impact decision, essentially a no brainer. Like, I'm not thinking that we necessarily need a pros and cons list for that, right? Like, that's a no brainer. Like, don't waste your time milling over every single piece of information and intake lots of new pieces of information to make that choice harder. It's a no brainer. Make the decision. Like, what's a low decision choice? Like, what I'm going to eat today. I
Right.
could compare that to like what I ate yesterday.
Right. Right.
But I think what we're talking about today is like, it's really hard to compare to others because there's nuance there, right? Things with your kids, your life, just the general macro level decision making, and the impact of your decision is big. Would you agree with that? What would you say is a hard choice? Like, what type of things?
I think what sums up a hard choice is when both choices seem hard. And I know that sounds like I'm repeating the definition, but you ever hear the saying where you're stuck between a rock and a hard place?
Yes.
Where both decisions that you make seem super hard. Almost like if we're talking about careers and you're like, hey, I'm good at what I do, I'm good where I'm at now, but I do want more. If
Yeah.
I want more, that could be by me exploring this option, that could mean me moving to a different office. That office might be a little bit different than the office that I am now. I've been here longer, I feel more stable, I
Yeah.
have more freedoms. I can go get my kids off the bus at 3:30 if I need to. Whereas if I go and I move offices, jobs, whatever, I might not have that freedom. I need to show myself proof before I can have those freedoms. It might be more pay, but it's more work involved. So you have two decisions in front of you, right? Neither one of them are like hard. Like it's the reason why it's a hard decision is because You don't look at either one of these decisions and say, that one clearly is so much better, so much easier, so much, you know,
Yeah, that would be a no-brainer
no
then.
brainer. It's not like that. Sometimes you're faced with decisions where it's like, hey, what am I willing to sacrifice here? Is it
Yeah.
A or is it B? Right? And a lot of times with predictability, with comfort, choice A might seem it's the best decision, but it could be with the sacrifice of potential, the sacrifice of what you actually want, the sacrifice of financial freedom or whatever that may be. And I think that's what makes hard, tough decisions. Like you said, waking up deciding what you want for breakfast. Is that a decision? Yes. Is that a tough decision? No. Right. But when you're talking about hard decisions where there is not really a right or wrong way, but it's more so your desires, your wants, your needs, and you're thinking more with your heart, I think that's what makes it really tough.
Yeah, I I am in the midst of making a hard decision right now. With my son's school, and it's not black and white. It's super gray, and lots of emotions involved, right? And I think the reason that I'm having such a hard time making this decision is because the fear of what we're going to lose with the experience cuts deeper than what I perceive we can gain because it's not here yet, right? Like, so we already know what we're going to lose. We don't know what's on the other side of that decision.
Right.
And so there's some fear that, and that's kind of why I said the road or the path between like the emotion and making the decision. I would suggest making that a little bit longer because on that road between, making the decision and or knowing that you have a hard decision and making that decision is what's in between is emotions.
Hmm.
And you have to contend with those emotions. You can't avoid them, right? If you avoid making a decision, you're still making a decision. You're avoiding it. You're just, and so you have to sort of square up with those emotions. Fear being one of them for me, like in this particular situation, like I feel like I have a lot of grief in just knowing that, it's not what I wanted for him and I had such high hopes for him at this new school. I have a like immense feeling of grief.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. Like, do you feel grief? Do you feel as though you're going to regret the choice that you make? That you make?
No, I don't like I said this on our Instagram the other day. Whatever choice we make, because he has me and Mike, we will be solid. He will be solid and we will make it work, right? That's not to say he's not going to be met with adversity. Like making it work and being solid does not mean nothing bad is going to happen. When I say we will be solid, I mean we will figure out whatever comes. And we have done that up until this date, with his journey, with his ADHD journey and relationships and maturation of like social emotional skills, all of those things. We reset, we level set, and we get to work and we figure it out. The grief for me comes, and actually, it's like grief with a touch of anger because why does he not, when we went into this new school, um, there was nothing but superlatives. And, for us, like, we're finding some blind spots that we didn't really think about. That's on us, but we would have had no real way to know. And so for me, it's like this grief matched with a little bit of anger because why is it my child that doesn't get this beautiful, loving, in my head, right? Experience. Like in my head, it's like, he'll go to this school and he'll become like this magnificent adult. And like, so it's like in my head, and I'm fully in my head still right now in this moment, which is why we haven't made a decision. But in my head, I'm like, why does my child not get to reap the benefits of that beautiful picture in my head? So that gives me a lot of anger.
Well, could it be that the picture in your head is not real? So, like, nothing like, if you think about it, if you create this perception in your head, right? That perception is just that, yours.
Yeah.
That perception isn't anyone else's, it's not the school's, is it's not even Nicholas's, you know? That's your perception. So someone not like, living up to your perception isn't anyone's fault but yours, right? Because that's your perception, right? So when I look at decisions like this, like, they don't have to be permanent, right? So what works right now may not work later,
Right.
and you have to change that, and I think that's what it is, especially when we're dealing with our children, right? I think for even in our generation growing up, you made a decision, you did it, and you stuck with it. That's just what it was. But now we're realizing that, hey, you can pivot very easily. And if something isn't working right now, it is our job to realize and point out what's not working and then make it work. And
Yeah.
then if that stops working, we'll pivot again. We'll pivot again. And life's all about pivoting and moving, because even in Nicholas's case, he's changing fastly. Like,
Mhm.
he's changing like the weather, right? And where he's at mentally right now won't be where he's at, gosh, 3 months from now, 6 months from now.
Yeah.
So I feel like what you're doing is you're looking at the decisions that you've made. The decisions that you initially made was the right decision,
Right.
because you took him from one space to the next. Now you're realizing, hey, this point isn't working. Now it's your job to take him from this point to the next. And I think that that's just what it is. It didn't work the way you wanted it to work, right? And now you're going to try something else. To me, I feel like that's the best that you can do in your position, is constantly pivot and constantly realize what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, and I did actually talk to, thank you for that, by the way. I need some stern talking to. Mike talks to me like this because, like, I'm not kidding you. We've been sort of in this space for a couple of weeks now, knowing that we have to make this decision. And like one day, like I had like just I was at my max. I took the afternoon off of work and I tried to take a nap. I could not even take a nap because my eyes kept filling with tears.
You
And they
know
were
it's
like
bad.
rolling across my bridge of my nose.
You know it's bad when Beth can't take her nap, because that girl will nap.
Oh
So,
my God.
so
And
you
my
know it's bad.
anxiety medicine doesn't really let me cry. So you know it's bad. Like the floodgates have been broken, damaged, the seal is gone.
I think that it's growing though, right? These are growing pains.
Yeah.
These are
Yeah.
growing pains.
I said to my therapist yesterday, she's like, you're always going to make the right choice with the information you have at that moment, is what you've kind of just said. And because I said that to her, it's like, I just moved him here to like get a smaller class size, beating us in the ass. And we kind of like left one situation and picked up another that we did not account for.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, so you did that. It's just like, yeah, but like her saying like, okay, so you did that. You're not some bad human, you know what I mean? And you're not some like horrible mother because you made the this she didn't say wrong choice. Like I almost just said that because in my head I've already painted myself as the villain.
And just know that, like, I feel like people usually regret the things they didn't do and not the things that they did do, right?
That's a good point.
And I think that, like, and I know this for sure, but I'm just going to ask you, even though I know, do you trust the decisions that both you and Mike make?
Yes.
Then
Yes,
there
because
you go.
especially now, because I used to make decisions and inform him. Like I would make decisions for our family and then inform him what was happening.
Yeah.
And I just can't do that. You can't do that in a partnership anywhere. You can't do that when it affects two people. You need to make those decisions together. However, I can't do that this stage in my life because I'm going through the change. I'm like, My body is changing. I'm in perimenopause. I'm just like my emotions are on overdrive. And it's not just something I'm saying. I actually just got all my hormones tested, which was super validating because they're all fucked up and out of whack. All of my female hormones. But even more so, when him and I come to a resolve, I need to trust it because he's doing it with me, right? Like if I were to just make decisions on my own right now, I don't know that I would 100% say that
Yeah.
was a solid choice.
But I think this is all part, and I love that we're having this conversation, we're talking through it, because this is all part of the process, right? When you're making a hard decision. In your head, the first thing you're like, you know, you're worried about if the decision that you're making is even good,
Yeah,
right? Those will cloud your head, they will cripple you, they will do all those things because you're worrying about something that you don't even know. It
right.
hasn't happened. You don't know, and I think that's all part of it, right? Is all the part of reason why like you're having a hard decision because you don't know what's on the other side. And I love the fact that when I ask you, do you trust yourself and trust Mike and the decision that you make, you're saying yes. So you're already telling me that whichever decision you both make in regards to Nicholas in school, you're going to make the right decision.
Yeah,
There is no wrong decision, right? And the reason why I say there is no wrong decision is because everything is well calculated. You're using the logic of where you've been, what you've initially thought about this school, and what
yeah,
will happen. You're using the logic of, what's actually happening currently. And then you're using the logic of what you want to happen, what position you want him to be in, what feeling you want him to have, and the relationship you want him to have with his peers in school, right? You know all of those things well. It's well calculated, right? So the only thing that you're doing right now is figuring out how to pivot. No matter what decision you guys make, because of all of this thought process that went in, will be inevitably the right decision.
like how you're saying that because I think you're right.
But you have to go through this whole emotional thing. You have to
I
go through
think
this whole like thing in your head because you're making big decisions. Like I said, this is not like, hey, should I have oatmeal or toast this morning for breakfast, right? It's more of a preference. It's not like if you have the oatmeal, this is going to happen. If you have the toast, this is going to happen. It's more preference. But when you're making a huge decision like this, where like, hey, the aftermath either can be for you or against you, you know.
right.
And they're big. Like I understand the whole versus thing that you're having in your head, but you also have to realize that you've trained your body, your mind, your soul, your brain into making the best decisions that you can make. You trained that. You've gone through things, you made some mistakes, you've listened to yourself, you trusted yourself in other decisions, you learn from those things. Like,
Yeah.
so all these things you guys are so intuitive. I think that all these things make up a good decision maker.
Well, and the other thing about trusting yourself and knowing yourself is just that knowing what your motivators are. So that's why I'm so all supportive. Like, I will tell anyone to get a therapist because they can recognize your patterns. And so, even yesterday, when I'm talking about this new thing, my therapist recognized that I have like this social justice part of me. Like, it's one of my parts where I feel like it's unfair what's happening to him, and I feel unjustified, and I feel saddened that the other families involved with their children. And I'm assuming, right? But I feel saddened that they're not kind of looking at this whole scenario as like a collective and a community, and they're looking at their child alone and their child being successful. And I'm saddened by that. And my therapist says, okay, well, that is not yours to hold. That is not yours to hold. So when I ask her, well, if like, why don't I feel good? Like, if I know the right decision, why don't I feel good about it? And she was like, because you're holding other people's emotions that aren't yours to hold.
100%.
And that is a
Like,
pattern that I have.
yeah, the thing is, I think we all do that in some capacity, you know? But I think when we do that, we either hold ourselves back or we just fill our brains up with more anxiety because
Right.
we
Or
can't
more
control.
information that's like
Yeah, we
counterproductive.
we can't control what someone else does, right? And I think this is all part of the process when you're making decisions, like realizing what's in your hand and what's not.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
can you control? Because we can't control the narrative, you know? Like what's happening to you, you can't control that. You can only control of how you move afterwards, how you respond to what's happening. That's the only thing that you can do
And I
because
don't know if we said this, but I almost wouldn't even say I wouldn't even say the goal is making the quote unquote right decision because it might not be the right decision. You're making a decision that you have mapped out and felt out and discussed with your people, and you're making a decision. It may not ultimately be right because we can't tell the future.
we can't exactly. We can't tell the future, but what you're doing is you're making a decision, and that decision is a well calculated decision. Can
Right.
we do we know that like next year the school plans on changing a whole new system and that would have supported what you're going
Yeah,
through right now, right? We don't know that. We don't know if
we
that's
don't.
happening. So what we're doing is like we are using a calculated decision with all the tools and all the information that we have at the second. That's the
Yeah.
only thing we can because like that would even cause anxiety if you're like, well, what if next year they do this and they do that? Because now we're really creating something that's not real, right?
Right.
And we're also building up this perception of what could happen that we don't even know is going to happen. So you have to take what you already know as of right now, and you have to base a decision off of that and
Yeah,
not
because
necessarily what could.
there is a time cap, right? Like there is school will end here in a couple of months and a new school year will start in another couple of months. So I don't have all the time in the world to make this decision. I think like just in the notion of timing, when you're making a hard decision, you just have to face it. We're in it right now. We're 2 weeks in it, right? Like we're 2 weeks from making this decision. We're going to be making a decision in the next couple of weeks. We're not drawing it out. I think our timing has gotten better in regards to making decisions on both ends. We take enough time in the beginning and we anticipate, not drawing it out. I think when you draw out making a hard decision, just like we talked about last week with that ball of yarn, you're picking up more and more carnage along the way, and it gets a little bit unclear for you, and the targets change a little bit and the goalpost changes a little bit. So your timing gets better on both ends.
Right. And I think you also eliminate the whole process of trusting yourself, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
trusting yourself, it's not
That's
an
a good
easy
point.
thing. It's not an easy thing. Like it's a practice, right? And you have to look at your track record, right? Are you all constantly making the wrong decisions? Then dive deeper. You know what I mean?
Heal
But
your
if you right, so look at your track record. You know, you guys make tough decisions all the time. You just did a whole huge renovation on your house. That's a big decision. There's a lot of big decisions that come along with that, right? So you're constantly making these big decisions. And this one I know when it comes to kids, it's a little bit more emotions involved, right?
Yeah.
Naturally.
Yeah.
Um, so I totally 100% get that. But let's go back to the foundation. Let's go back to the fundamentals. Like you
What
guys
are
are amazing parents. You're amazing humans. Trust the decision that you're going to make is going to be the right one. And if you trust that 100%, it will be. But if you don't trust yourself, you're always going to say, well, what if? Well, what if? Maybe it's wrong. And
I mean,
that's
that is
natural.
kind of what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if this changes, or what if that changes, or this could come into play and that could come into play.
And you also have to give yourself grace, right? Because like when you're making hard, tough decisions, it's not like, you know, you make the right decision and then it's all peachy keen and all that glitters is gold, right? You make a decision, but it's up to you to make it a right decision, right? So you make the decision and then, you know, it's still going to be a little hard. right? Adjusting, understanding, clarity, getting clarity in why you made this right decision. So it's not like you just make a decision and everything just works out. You make a decision and now you start working towards that route.
Have you ever made a decision super impulsively and you wish you wouldn't have?
I'm sure that I have. Um, I think that a
Like a
lot of
big
times, like,
decision.
change is very scary to me, even though I do it. It is very scary. I go through a whole process, and usually it's like a tantrum or two that's in there. I gotta have my tantrums to make sure. But
Test out the pH level.
yes, yes, I gotta let it all out, and I'm like, okay, shake it off. You're good, girl. But there has been decisions that I made, and I do believe they're the right decisions, but when I made the decision, I thought it was, like, impulsive. I thought it was, "Oh, this is the wrong decision," or, "Was it right?" or, "It's still hard," or, "It's harder than I thought." But now when I look back and it's been some time, like, I've gone through the real tough part, I realized that I made the right decision.
Yeah, I love
But
that.
in the midst of it, I don't always feel it right away.
Yeah. And there's been some glimmers too when I haven't made a decision based on impulsivity and some time has passed and then some glimmers have happened. And I'm like, shit, I'm glad I didn't do what I was intending to do or say what
Right.
I was intending to say.
Yeah. Or even sometimes you ever make a decision, right? And you're like beating yourself up about it and you're talking to someone and they're like, "Oh my gosh," and they tell you exactly what you did. Like they tell you exactly what you should do and it's exactly what you did. And then you're like, "Oh, I made the right decision." My heart is probably like, "Oh, I wasn't good enough. I wasn't good enough to base your decision off of that. You had to have someone else tell you. Like you had to have an outside perspective." Like
So, yeah,
But
you're
right, but
capable.
it's all about trusting yourself, and I think that that's what it is, diving deep into that is trusting yourself. Trusting that all the things that you've overcome, that you've went through, that you've got through, like, those are all the things that help you make the right or wrong decisions.
Yeah, I love that. I
Like,
love that.
those are all the things that make up for it, so, like, just understanding that and know that you have all the tools that you need, and guess what? If the decision doesn't work, it doesn't mean that it was the wrong decision. It's just time to pivot.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of us get stuck when we make a decision. We're like, see, told you it wasn't going to work. And then we give up because now we're like, I'm not even going to make a decision anymore. I'm not even going to change anything anymore because you're scarred, right? That's like an
Yeah.
imprisonment mindset.
Yeah.
But when you make a decision, trust yourself the decision is right and know when it's time to pivot. Life's all about pivoting and you have to keep moving. So, like, if it doesn't work or it works until it doesn't, then it's time to shift again, and that's all it is.
I love this, and it's also making me think about you said the foundations is naming the emotion you're making your decision from. If
Yes.
you're making your decision from a place of goodness, good intent, right? A place of safety and love and care, great. Then you're gravy, right? But I will tell you with market research that I have done, every time I've made a decision from like a negative affect, so like spite, backfired on me every time. Whether it's an email that I sent, like the tone backfired on me, whether it's, I decide to show my ass and it's like not like me, backfired on me. You know what I mean? Like if I'm making that behavioral decision from a place of negative emotion, it's going to backfire every time because that's not the time to make the decision.
Never. I always say with the email thing, I'm so funny that you brought that up, is type out that email, get all that emotion out, type it up, type it up, type it up. Do not push send. Give yourself an hour, read it back. Most likely, you will not feel that same way.
No.
And sometimes, instead of making the decision and pushing send, sometimes we need to get out that emotion because that emotion that you're feeling right then and there is real. So rather
Right.
you're super angry, you're frustrated, you're going ape shit, like whatever it is, like that's valid. Like you're feeling that, right?
Yeah.
Let that emotion out so that the logical emotion can filter in. Like let that out. Let that out. Just don't push send.
I know, but sometimes the push send part is the part that gives you relief for a short time, for a really short
Really
time,
short time. And then what happens
and
is
create all types of other
I
problems
was
for you.
gonna say that that's what it does, right? So in that moment, you're like, I'm pushing send. Yeah, yeah, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling strong. You push send. But what happens is you take that emotion and you put it out there into the world and just know, right? Law of attraction, you get that right back. And a lot of times it's a hundredfold. So you
Mhm.
got to look at it like, is this temporary? Is this feeling that I'm feeling temporary? Most likely, when it's an emotion like that, and you're angry, you're sad, whatever, is very temporary. So that's why I was saying, if you push that send button, if you make that decision, that final decision based solely off of emotion, just know that you're going to get that back 100% fold. You'll get it back.
It's good advice
If you feel
from
that,
the just that's
yeah,
really good advice from you especially. Um, you're doing a lot of that real time. Like we're like desk workers, right? Like you're probably doing that in the moment with your clients. Like you've probably not sent something you wanted to say. You've
yeah,
held it in.
yeah,
You've probably, had some issues with, whatever, where you talk it through and you're like, this is going to be what I'm going to do, but then you don't do it.
yeah, yeah,
Whether it's your partnership or your clients or whatever. So that's solid advice because you should be able to regulate yourself enough to give yourself at least 24 hours.
yeah. Because you got to know, like, and I think we learned this when Lindsay. We got to bring Lindsay back on,
You
but I
do.
think we learned this when Lindsay was on, and it's it's more so like your past traumas and things that you've gone through help shape your emotions and how you respond to certain things.
Mhm.
And if you respond to something off the wazoo, kind of wacky, it's because it touched a nerve. It hit something. It
Mhm.
triggered you, right? But why it triggered you is your problem, not anyone else's. And I think that you have to understand, why does this trigger you? Does it trigger you because you want Nicholas to have the best experience and you want him to have the best support so that he grows up knowing that, hey, my parents fought for decisions and things that I needed in life for me to succeed? Yes, 100%. You don't want him to go through life to have to figure that out on his own.
Yeah,
And
and I also have abandonment issues.
yes,
You know what I mean? Like so it is triggering because I walk around every day with a rejection bias because my dad just scot free left when I was 2 years old, never to see or hear from him again,
right. So, but
right?
look at the situation at hand, right? Nicholas has a loving family with loving parents that will do anything for him to succeed. They would switch and
Yeah.
change and pivot and all those things. So, your reality of what you've gone through is your reality, and that has happened. Nico's reality is different.
Right. And so even in the process is like separating like what emotions are tied to my abandonment and what emotions are tied to the hard decision.
One
Like
heart,
even
100%.
going through that is like pivotal because
Yeah,
if you don't know the difference, then you are very likely going to make a foggy, clouded decision.
you're going to base decision off something that happened to you and you only, and this will have a negative effect on Nicholas because he is dealing with or going through the emotions of a decision that you made for him that had nothing to do with him,
Right.
you
Right.
know? So like
Right.
that's so like all these things, and we have to understand, like, why do we feel this way?
Wait,
Do
I'm dying laughing because I think I've made these decisions for my kids before when their friends have been mean to them. I'm like, they're cut. They're dead to us. And like the next day they're best friends again. I'm like, I thought they were dead to us. Like kindergartners.
cracking
I'm
up.
about to fight a kindergartner. They are done.
Right, right, because and I think that that's also, as a parent, right? We can see the forest through the trees. We already know. We already know the friend that's going to be around for the long run. We already know the friend that's just there to suck them dry, right? So we already know, but it's up to us because we don't want to also base our perception of other people onto our kids. So sometimes you got to
Have
just like
children. Like we can't
sometimes
be judging children.
judging children, but sometimes you got to stand back,
But I can judge their mamas.
maybe give them a little evil eye when you see them. Like, I
Yeah,
know what your intentions are.
don't jump on and say, "Send it to your mom."
How do we go into
Tell
something
her I'm
so
looking for
serious with like valid points and information to like cracking up about chumping kids
And also, I noticed you were trying to wrap us up that all the time.
all the time? All the time. Just take us back. I'm trying to, and
That is right.
the thing is, like, I am really trying to be on this like a good path, Beth, and you always somehow take me back. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, chump them. Yeah. Like, I'm literally trying to grow. I'm not trying to go back to what has been. So I'm like literally on this journey of just prosperity and moving forward and forgiveness and loving and caring. And then she takes me back. But that's how you know how weak I am. Because I'm like, yeah, yeah. Just give him the evil eye. Whisper in his ear, like, she'll never accept you.
You'll never be over for pot roast.
You'll never have a sleepover. Don't get your hopes up. She'll meet new friends. Like, I'm cracking up.
Cut your losses now.
Cut your losses. But yeah, it's up for us, even when our kids are going through, those things that, kids go through with other peers and things like that. Sometimes, and I know this is hard, but sometimes we got to take a step back and say, you
Yeah.
know what? I gave them the tools. They better know how to use them. But I
Yeah.
gave them the tools and they'll figure it out,
Yeah.
you know?
I there's a lot of glimmers in this situation. This is probably a great way to end, and looking for the glimmers, because even over these last handful of weeks, like, we've spent a lot of time with him, and you know, life has been busy lately. And so, if anything, it's like level set our as in relationships, you always need to be working to level set so you can move to that next milestone, right? And so with him, like, I know Mike has been spending a lot of time with him. I've been having a lot of like bedtime conversations, right? Because it's like knowing when he's going to open up and when he's not. Like, the 5 minutes off the bus, the 10 minutes before he goes to sleep. That's when he's talking to me and telling me about his day and what happened. Otherwise, it's like, it was a normal day. And then I'll like get an email from the principal. I'm like, was it? This is normal? Like, this is not normal.
Communication. And just knowing too that every tough choice is an opportunity to build your decision-making muscle, right? The more you practice it, the stronger and more confident you'll become. Just trust that even in the outcome isn't what you may have hoped for, you will also and always learn and gain something valuable from the experience. But you've armed yourself with tools and self-belief. Now you just have to go out there and embrace the power of your choice. Your future self is still waiting out there. Just keep practicing when these times do come around,
I love that.
because hard decisions are never easy, but they're always worth it.
I love that. Nice way to close. Amen, sister.
Amen,
Sis.
sis.
Chat later, y'all.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, my good people. Give us a listen.
If you do not already, follow us on Instagram at trustme_the_podcast.
We are now on TikTok.
TikTok. We are. Trust me BK on TikTok. So
Love it.
give us a follow. Subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you choose. Thank you guys for listening. Tune in. Stay true to us. We'll stay true to you. If you guys have any comments, any questions, any podcast topics, please DM us. Don't be afraid. And until next time.
Love yas. Bye.
Bye.